All right, everyone, welcome to Power Skills Level 2, where we discuss thinking. In the previous videos, we discussed self-image, not so much as an active thinking process, but as neuron highways of completely automatic and unconscious ways of thinking and feelings, which create states. And in those states, we can be productive, motivated, inspired, happy, blissful, thriving, or we can be depressed, unmotivated. We also discussed strategies on how to transform your self-image and the fact that we're not broken or flawed, that as human beings we're super resilient. However, the more we improve our confidence and our self-esteem, the better results we get. In this video, I'm going to talk about analytical and critical thinking. Critical thinking, how it relates to your career results, what is fast versus slow thinking, deep versus shallow thinking, and I will discuss how you can develop slow and deep thinking, and of course you will know by then why this matters, and I will invite you to today's challenge. Now let me give you an example to kind of put in perspective the concept of critical thinking and also the concept of shallow and deep thinking. Meet Ivan and John. They are both interns in a great marketing agency, and this marketing agency just got a new client, a new dating app. It's a startup that has been funded, it has tons of money, so they're about to spend a lot of those money in marketing. John and Ivan have a task. They need to come up with a marketing campaign for that new dating app and present it to the entire team of the marketing agency. So John goes back home and he thinks to himself, I'm good at dating, so I'm going to use my personal experience. Yet he makes some shallow research with ChatGPT. He reads through the first results ChatGPT provides, and then he comes up with one idea. Without thinking too much about that idea, he puts it in a presentation. And of course, he does his presentation with ChatGPT, which means that the presentation has a lot of capital letters and has the word comprehensive on every slide. Ivar, on the other hand, goes back and he calls some of his friends, both boys and girls, and he asks some really thoughtful questions about dating and about how they approach dating. Then Ivan does a deep search with ChatGPT. He reads all the information and further research part of the sources ChatGPT has provided. Ivan doesn't stop there. He goes to Google Scholar and reads some peer review articles on dating. He prepares a presentation, of course using ChatGPT, but there are no capital letters, everything is in human language, and he finally edits the entire presentation, making sure that it sounds human. When Ivan came up with his marketing idea, he didn't just present the first thing that came to his mind. After his thorough research, he brainstormed 10 ideas, and he thought that all 10 were not great. So he did some meditation and then brainstormed some more. The moment he sat on his desk to prepare the presentation, he thought that a combination of two of his original ideas is actually great, and that's what he presented. The day of the presentations came, and when John was in front of the team presenting, everyone could figure out that this was a copy-paste presentation. People are like, oh, boring. And the manager of the marketing agency was, I have hired this person. I pay him salary to copy-paste from ChatGPT. Oh, Jesus. The presentation was awkward. There were some applauses and people were like, oh. Then came Ivan's turn. Before he started his presentation, he asked some questions. What makes a person irresistible to you? How do you approach dating? Where did you meet your current partner? Not only he asked those questions, but he incorporated them in his presentations because they were related to his presentation, and his presentation was brilliant. 2 years after this day, one of the managing partners of the marketing agency decided to go rogue and start his own company. He took Ivan with him as a co-founder, and now Ivan could work from any part of the world as co-founder of a great newly developed marketing agency. If you think this is not a true story, actually Ivan's story is true. It's the story of one of my coaching clients, and although it did not develop precisely like this, and it was her, she already had a great relationship with the lady manager that went rogue. In essence, this is a true story. And John is a made up character, but he represents a lot of young people that I have interviewed, worked with, and coached. They might have higher IQ than Ivan, but their approach to tasks is so superficial and so low level that a lot of times people who hire them or their clients are actually sorry. I even remember that once I hired a marketing freelancer and his work was so shallow that I've never felt worse in sending money to him, and I never hired him again. Now we will talk about critical thinking. When we talk about critical thinking, there is one metaphor that comes to my mind, and that's how whiskey is produced. As a non-drinker, disclaimer, I am not an expert of the process, but I have watched it and I think I have a pretty good idea of the overall concept of whiskey production. So how is a great whiskey produced? Well, there is input, some sort of liquid, which goes through different vessels, through different machinery, and it distills. So it distills, and then you get the output. And the better the process from input to output, the better the whiskey. I believe it's absolutely the same with critical thinking. When you have input information, and of course, the quality of the input is important. If you get this much input and it's shit will come out. If you get that much input and that super high quality input, good things will come out. But let's look at the process. So you have this high quality input and then it distills. You question it. Then you research it even more. Then you add new ideas. Then you question it again. Then you make another research. Then you challenge some assumptions. Then you talk to some people. You get feedback. And then you get the output, which is brilliant. So when you think about critical thinking, and about work in general, think of it this way. High quality input, world-class process, brilliant output. Now let's explore fast versus slow thinking. So Daniel Kahneman, whose book and work I will link in the description of this video, came up with two systems of thinking, System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast thinking and System 2 is slow thinking. So System 1, fast thinking, it's intuitive, it's fast, it's surface level thinking. It's like, I see this and I directly make an assumption. So this is fast thinking and it's rarely productive. Now, I would like to make a very important note here. I'm not talking about how you feel about something, because you might see a person who is a threat to you and your gut feeling might be right. Here, this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you producing work, you making researches, you learning, you helping clients. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about using your thinking process to create something amazing, to create a masterpiece in the world, not your gut feeling, which usually tells you the truth about life choices. Okay, going back to System 1, fast thinking, intuitive, emotional, fast. System 2 thinking is slow, it's analytical, it's structured, and it usually has more input. If you want to develop a great business or become a master in your craft, System 2 is your system thinking. And if you think that this applies only to white collar and intellectual jobs, pretty much people who work on a computer, let me tell you something. System 2 thinking leads to visual artists creating great work. System 2 thinking leads to DJs creating great sets. System 2 thinking is pretty much going deeper and accessing a masterpiece material that you're going to produce in the world. Now, let's explore shallow versus deep thinking. Shallow thinking is reactive, is fast, and is surface level. Shallow thinking corresponds to scrolling. You're scrolling, you see a news, you just read the title or even half of the title, and then you have an idea in your mind of what is true and what is not true. And what happens with shallow thinking is that it feeds prejudice, it feeds biases, and it also creates prejudice and it creates biases. And for everyone who is digital native, you are more prone to fast thinking because of social media and digital devices. And here I want us to ponder on a very important question: the thinking habits that we create. Remember that thinking habits are like highways in your brain. If you are used to shallow thinking, this is like writing with your right hand if you usually write with your right hand. So if you're used to shallow thinking, this is like writing with your right hand. But when you need to go to deep thinking, this is like writing with your left hand, which would be difficult. And what will happen? Without even noticing, you keep switching to your right hand because this is the habit. I believe it's very dangerous to make shallow thinking your habit. But also in preparation for this video, I challenged myself, and 2 days in a row I wrote with my left hand. And I can tell you that right now I feel much more confident writing with my left hand, and I usually write with the right, which means that you can rewire and you can reprogram your brain for deep thinking. Deep thinking is focused, structured, and it involves solving complex problems. So my main message here is that all of us, regardless of whether we are digital natives or not, we tend to go to shallow and fast thinking, and we make this a habit which is difficult to break. But if we want to get great results, we need to develop the habit of deep thinking and the habit of slow thinking. And as I promised you, I will share with you what are some strategies that you can start developing deep thinking and slow thinking as a habit. And I will also invite you to today's challenge, which aims to develop deep thinking. Now, the very first strategy to develop deep thinking and slow thinking is to have extremely high standards for your work. If we go back to Ivan's and John example, one of them had very high standards, and in order to meet them, he had to put a lot of effort. The other one had very low standards. So the first strategy, which is so simple but yet so difficult to attain, is to have high standards for your work. The second strategy to develop deep thinking and slow thinking is to walk the extra miles. The way you know you are in deep thinking mode is when you start feeling some sort of fatigue, when you start feeling the effort of doing a task, when you start feeling that your research is effortful, when you start feeling that writing your book is effortful, when you start feeling that communicating with this client is effortful, when you start feeling the initial fatigue, this is a sign that you are about to cross a threshold of difficulty and go to the next level. And so walking the extra miles mean continuing with your work, continuing with the depth, continuing with the quality as much as you possibly can in that given moment. Now, I'm not saying you should pass out on your chair, but what I have observed is that 99% of the people quit when they have achieved 1/3 of the quality they're capable of. Exactly. Almost everyone quits doing the work when they have achieved only 1/3 of what they're capable of. And the problem is that when you have achieved 1/3, you will always default to this 1/3. So the second strategy also sounds simple, but it's so super important. Every time you feel like it's getting hard, push. Work is getting hard, push. It's just like in the gym. Walk that extra mile. And the third strategy, which I have mentioned at the very beginning of our work together in Power Skills Level 2, is to read serious literature. Read literature that it's fiction and it's classic, and also read nonfiction literature, which is not self-help, it's not pop culture, but it's scientific nonfiction literature. So number one, have super high standards for your work. Super high standards. Number two, when you start working, always walk the extra mile. The moment it gets difficult, do more and do more and do more. And number three, read high quality literature. And yes, read, don't listen to it. You can also explore why. Read and not listen. And now I would like to invite you to do the challenge in this lesson, in this step, because this is your challenge for critical thinking, which you can then submit in the program.